share with you around working with the diaphragm is, when we have some pressure on our nostrils, like yesterday we did alternate nostril breathing. When we have some additional pressure on our nostrils, it forces our diaphragm to have to work just a little bit harder to move the breath. And it's very toning for the diaphragm. So it's a good skill for us to develop healthy diaphragmatic movement for our breathing. And also, besides that, when we cut off a little bit of our passageways for breathing, we interrupt the balance of carbon dioxide and oxygen a little bit. By the way, I have a plumber here in my kitchen right now, so if there's some noise going on through our practice, please forgive me. Um, anyway, this balance between oxygen and carbon dioxide is very subtle in our bodies. And sometimes if we can elevate the carbon dioxide level just a little bit, this is a very healthy thing for us. So a slight amount of air hunger when we're doing a little bit of pranayama can be a good thing to stretch those receptors and develop our capacity to hold a little bit more carbon dioxide. When we have those levels in good capacity, we actually oxygenate our tissues better. When our levels are up a little bit, the red blood cells that carry oxygen through our body, on the hemoglobin molecule, the way our oxygen is carried gets sticky, and the red blood cells are hesitant to give up their oxygen and give it to the tissues. And when we alter this carbon dioxide oxygen exchange level just ever so slightly, it makes our red blood cells a little bit more free in they give off their oxygen that they're carrying into the tissues a little bit more freely. So, you can have an oxygen saturation level in your bloodstream that's very high. But really what we're looking for is an oxygenation of our tissues, not just oxygen in our blood. So having a teeny bit of air hunger and messing with that carbon dioxide oxygen exchange can be a really great thing for developing good oxygenation in our tissues. So as can having a very well working diaphragm so that we can have this oxygen exchange and carbon dioxide exchange in our lungs. So we're going to start our practice today. I'm going to describe it and then we'll, kind of center ourselves and do it. But when you do, there's all different techniques that you can do for pranayama. And this is just simply holding both sides of your nose. So, usually it's the thumb and the ring finger that we hold. And you want to hold high on the nostril, not at the tips of your nose. It's a different pressure gradient when you hold kind of right at the root of your nostrils. And when we do this breath work today, we're going to have equal weight bearing down on both nostrils. And unlike alternate nostril breathing where you close one off and open the other and then, switch, in this exercise, we're going to close it off maybe 20, 30, no more than 40-ish%. You don't want to have, like a real blockage of your nasal passages, but you do want to narrow the pathway a little bit, which will make you have to work just a little bit harder in the diaphragm to get that air in. So if you feel a sense of air hunger, let yourself experience just a bit of it. Try not to stop just because suddenly it's uncomfortable. See what you can do to know where your boundary line is with air hunger. You don't want to get to the point where your next inhale is like, where you really have to gasp for your next breath. You don't want it to produce anxiety, but have just a slight discomfort of something unusual happening in you so that you can get the benefit of this pranayama technique. And then we'll start practicing. Okay, so sit up straight and tall and just take a moment to ground yourself. So what is your day held? I mean, are you having a plumber in your house today? Are things going wrong in your day? Do you have some unexpected snafus along the way? Has your day been going very smoothly? What's happening in your heart? What's happening in your mind? Did you sleep well? Do you have kind of a simmer of stress going on, or is it a rolling boil? So just take stock. And have a moment to come into your body. Ground yourself. Feel your roots. Feel the spaciousness in your spine. Attune to the breath. Tend to any little areas in the body that are gripped or tense. Can you bring softness? Allow your shoulders to release. And just notice a good, comfortable seat. Pay attention to how your diaphragm is functioning. And then when we're ready, take your right hand, your thumb on the top of your right nostril, your ring finger on the top of your left nostril, and just close the gates just a little bit. So, no more than 40 or 50%. Start small. You can always go more. And we're going to inhale through both sides of the nose simultaneously. See if you can sense if you're dominant on one side versus the other. Balance as best as you can. Come into that state of a long, steady inhale. And then a nice, relaxed exhale. Keep your shoulders soft. Try not to turn your head toward your hand. Keep a sense of openness openness in the chest without compressing the back body. Let your breath be slow, both the inhale and the exhale. Can you feel how the diaphragm has a little bit more of a plunger kind of feel to it, where there's pressure on it to bring that breath in? This tones the diaphragm well. And remember, this breath it's okay to have a little bit of air hunger. See if you can stay with it. When you're ready, you can go ahead and release your hands after your exhale and enjoy a full breath. Let swirl inside your brain, inside your sinuses. And then relax. Bring your hands together at your heart and feel the centering nature of breath. What is it giving you? Offer an intention for your practice today. Okay, and then go ahead and release the hands. And let's come onto our back. Okay. So once again, I apologize. I think there's going to be a fair amount of noise behind me while we're practicing. So just bear with it, okay? All right, let's go ahead and come onto our back. See what it feels like to stretch out and lengthen. Okay. All right, so reach your arms out and up overhead and lengthen through the sides of your body. Open things up. See what it feels like to stretch and enjoy the feeling of moving your body. And then bring your knees into your chest and rock a little bit from side to side. Just feel into the ease of your nervous system. Let it relax. Notice the ease of your breath through both nostrils. Right knee into the chest, left leg long on the floor. And let's roll around through your ankles. Wiggle your toes a little bit. And then change sides. Left knee into the chest, right leg long on the floor. Move around a little bit. Breathe deeply.
And then 2 knees back in. Let's open the knees apart from each other, swing them back in. We're going to get into the hips a little bit today. So just feel into how your range of motion is right now with your pelvis, with your hip joints. All right, and then put your feet down onto the ground, arms out to the side. Feet are wide, like the edge of the mat wide. And let's just windshield wiper our knees left and right. When your knees go left, stretch your right arm up and away. When your knees go right, stretch your left arm up and away. Just come into the side waist opening a little bit here. And then relax. Take your fists and put them under the outer hips for a moment. Soles of the feet together. Let's just start with a teeny bit of support under a Supta or for Supta Baddha Konasana. Let the shoulders relax. If you don't need your fists, then you don't have to keep them there underneath the outer hips. Just enjoy. Feel the what's gripping. Is there anything that can be released in this posture? Go ahead and bring the knees back up, stretch your limbs, starfish your body out, extend, exhale, bring your knees in. Let's try one more time. Open yourself out. Exhale, bring your knees in. Roll over onto your side and come up onto your hands and your knees. And let's start moving through some cat-cows. Okay, so what does it feel like to arch and round the spine? Can you feel into the movement? Feel free to swirl around, move your hips, move your shoulders, wag your tail, anything that feels freeing and good for the body. And then stretch back towards child's pose. Take your hips back toward the heels. Walk the hands out in front of you and lengthen. Soften the base of the skull. Stretch out your palms. Inch your hands over to the left side of your mat and open the right rib cage up. Melt through the base of your skull. Drop weight into the pelvis. And then come back to center and find your way over to the other side. Enjoy the rib cage. Breathe deeply. And then come back, come up onto all fours. Let's have a twist. Reach that arm up. Exhale, slide that shoulder down. Enjoy the space between your shoulder blades. Relax your neck. Feel into the way you're breathing through your nose. And then inhale, arm coming back up. Exhale, hand down onto the ground. Change sides. Gaze toward the floor. Relax a little bit. Shoulders away from the ears. Breathing well. And then inhale and lift that arm all the way back up in the air. Place the hand down. Find your first dog pose. Feel into the length of your body. Bend your knees as much as you want. Feel the sense of being able to pedal or bounce, any kind of movement that helps you get into the body to feel present. Let's take some deep breaths in, deep breaths away. Hug your hands toward each other. Feel that sense of stability through the sides of your torso. Keep reaching the heart up toward the pelvis. All right, walk your feet forward. Come into Uttanasana. Bend your knees as much as you need to. Inhale for a halfway lift. The spine is growing longer and taller. Exhale and melt and fold back down. Let's try one more time. Inhale for a halfway lift. Exhale. Release. Take your feet to the outside of your mat, so just a little bit wider, and feel into a little different posture here. So just a little change in how it's stretching your hamstrings. Lift and widen the sit bones. Take your thigh bones back. And then heel toe your feet back into the center. Bend your knees, rise up, feel a sense of extension, reach your arms, open things up, stretch back, lean back if it feels good. Cactus, open your arms. And then exhale and round in. Reach two arms up to the sky. Over to the left you go. Find that sense of extension. Back to center, over to the other side. Feel the length of your sides. Okay, open up one more time. Cactus, the arms, shoulder blades move toward each other and then round in. Rise all the way up. Exhale. Float forward. Halfway lift, spine grows. Exhale and melt again. Let's step our left foot back. The right foot comes forward to a nice long lunge. Place your back knee down onto the ground and rise upward. So feel that sense of support. You can always ignore me and lift your knee off the floor if you'd rather, but try not to fall. We're not collapsing. We're rising up. Reach the arms to wherever you want them to be. Find a good, healthy breath. Try not to collapse into the lumbar spine. And I'm going to reach the left arm across, place either your forearm on your thigh or the elbow to the outer knee and find a twist. Hug to the midline, let the hip flexor stretch on that back leg. Stay grounded through the front big toe, reach through the crown. And then exhale and release your hands back down to the floor or to the blocks. Lift your back knee up off the floor and walk your back foot in so that your stance is shorter. Blocks can be helpful to put your hands on so you can stretch your outer hip a little bit. Move your right hip back away from the front of your mat, root into the big toe. Extend your spine forward, finding the breath here. Square hips. You can always take your front foot out to the side more if you need it. Stay grounded through that foot. Great, and then we're gonna hop up onto that foot and come into half splits. Lift your leg in the air, extend through that leg, maybe pulse it a few times so you get the feeling of your glutes working for you. Deep breaths, long spine. Exhale, place your foot down next to the other foot, hip width apart, fold in half. Step your other foot back, come into a lunge on this side. Find your breathing. Place your back knee down. You can always pad a little blanket or extra mat underneath that back knee. You can always lift the back knee instead if that's better for your body. Extend your spine. When you're ready, rise up. Maybe your arms come up. Maybe your arms come more out. Maybe your hands are on your hips. There's so many variations. Trust your breath to guide you. Try not to fall to the floor. Press your foot, press your knee, hug to the midline with your thighs. All right, and then when you're ready, reach that arm over, cross it to the elbow, to the knee, or the forearm on your thigh, whichever feels good, and expand into the twist. Hug to the midline, breathing well. Feel your spine. So, your diaphragm gets caught up a little bit when you're twisting. There's some counteraction with your obliques. So just see what you can do to still expand that diaphragmatic breath. And then come back to center. Find your breath. Hands down onto the ground. Come back to stand up on your one foot. So bend your knee, hop up. We're going to go backwards. I won't forget the other pose. Don't worry. Stretch up into a half splits. Extend through the spine. Extend your crown. Square the pelvis. Inner thigh lifts toward the sky. Pulse a couple of times if you want with that leg in the air. Can you root to rise with that foot? Feel the outer hip begin to stretch here. And then take your foot back. Parsvottanasana legs. Two hands on the blocks, or you can always be, holding your hips or holding your legs somewhere if you don't have blocks. Square up the hips. You can take your left foot out to the left a little bit more if need be. Extend the spine, grow. Notice if you lean into the back of your knee. Soften a little bit that back knee space, root into the toes instead. All right,
let's release our hands down, come back to dog pose. Take your feet wide on the mat, turn your toes in. So there's a little inner spiral of the thighs. Take some length through your spine. Deep breaths in, deep breaths out. Okay, return your feet to normal. Come forward into a plank. Hold yourself steady. Stabilize through your core. Move your shoulders away from the ears. Imagine a block between your thighs. And then let's bend our knees and come all the way down to the ground. Roll the shoulders a few times. Just get that mobility of the shoulder blades to move. And then as you're ready, rise up, open the chest. Exhale and melt back down. Let's try one more time. Deep breath, open up. Exhale and relax. Come up onto all fours and anterior tilt the pelvis. Let's take our knees super wide and come into a deep forward fold in the hip joints. So deep anterior tilt, feel the compression in your hips. Find your breath. Okay, and then come back up. And you can find dog pose or you can just stand up, however you want to get to standing. So transition your way. We're going to come up to stand and place our feet to the outside edges of our mat. Okay, find your breath and come into a squat. So as you do this, spread your toes. You can have your elbows on top of your knees or inside your knees. Try to keep your pelvis or your sit bones in line with your knees or a little higher instead of dropping way down. Maybe you want to open up your knees a little bit, feel that inner thigh stretch so you can press the elbows into the inner knees, spread your toes, ground yourself. Draw your femur bones deep back into the hip joints and widen your sit bones. Okay, and then rise all the way up. Starfish your body. If you're dizzy, come to the midline, maybe even cross your legs or squeeze your hands. And then come back to center. Find Tadasana. Just stand evenly. Feel the roots of your feet. Drop your shoulders. Find your breath. And then as you're ready, inhale, lift your arms to the sky. Exhale and float back down. Halfway lift, the spine grows. Exhale, left foot back, right foot comes forward. And then when you're ready, rise up, a full crescent lunge now. Open things up, breathe. Let's get into the psoas muscle a little bit. Take your right hand on your thigh, stretch up through your left. See if you can find that extension through the front of your hip. And then reach forward, take your elbow to the knee, palms together and twist. If that's too deep, place your hand down onto the ground and lift your arm to the sky. You can have your hand on a block too. So take any variation of the twist that works for your body. Sit bones wide, the back thigh is lifting, and then release and melt. Let's turn and open up. So hopefully your back leg is nice and open. And now let's work a little bit with cultivating that rotation in the front hip. Reach your arms out to the sides. Legs are straight to begin. Let's find our breath. And we're going to bend our knee. And then arms come up. Straighten the leg. Bend again. Inhale, arms in. Straight leg. Bend again. Straight leg, arms up. And now let's come into Virabhadrasana. So remember, your Vira 2 can look like this. It can be this high. It doesn't have to be super deep. It can be, but it might be up here where your range of motion of your hip is best suited. So find what's available to rotate open that femur bone. Let the knee track in line with the middle toes and do what you can to stabilize from there. And then allow the pelvis to be wherever it needs to be in relation to that stable femur bone. So instead of trying to open the femur bone away from the pelvis, set the femur bone, and then try to figure out how open your pelvis can be in relation to the set femur bone. Drop your shoulders, spin your front foot. So your right toes are going to spin right on the ground, nothing's moving. Right heel is going to spin left. So activate, light up those outer hip muscles that help you rotate your femur bone. All right, from here, let's straighten up the leg. Find your breath, triangle pose. So enjoy a straight thigh for a moment, and you can use blocks or 2 blocks, or you can put your hand on your leg. If you're putting your hand, be very light. Try not to lean onto your leg, and certainly don't lean on your knee. So whatever support is needed for you, open things up, turn the belly, turn the chest, ground through your back foot. If you feel compression in your SI joint in the back, especially that left SI joint, tip the pelvis and turn it toward the right foot until you feel ease across that joint. Breathing well. Ground through both feet. Okay. And then rise back up. Turn your feet straight for a moment. Feet are wide on the mat. And we're going to come down. We're not quite done with that side. We're going to do one more pose. But first, just feel a sense of symmetry as best as you can. Let's stretch into the inner thighs. So one knee squats. And this time you can come low if your body allows that. So just go as low as your body says. Stretch the inner thigh of that left leg. Spine grows long. Hands can be on blocks or floor. And then come back up. And depending on your knees, flexibility, you may, be around here where the knee bends a little bit, or you could be all the way down here where your knee comes into superflexion. So just be where your body says is best. Extend the spine. If you're deep like this, try not to hyperextend this knee. This right knee can fall into the earth. Press your heel down. Okay, and then come back up. 2 legs, hands in the middle. Find your breath. And then rise back up. Back to the first side, that right side. Bend your knee and come into Parsvakonasana. The elbow is resting on the knee or hand on the block. Before you find, the upper body, find the lower body. Ground through your feet. Spin that right foot, toes right, heel left. Let the pelvis rotate around that femur bone wherever it needs to go. And then stretch your arm and enjoy. What's to be enjoyed in this posture? Can you root both feet? Is there a deep extension in that side of your body that feels good? How is your breath? All right, and then come on up and find the front of your mat again for dog pose. So we've gone somewhere with one side and not the other side. So as you come into a symmetrical pose like this, sense the difference between your left and right. Deep breath here. Come forward into a plank. Hold yourself steady. Strong exhale, strong work in your core on your exhales. Deep breaths. Go ahead and bring your knees down to the ground and slowly lower yourself to the floor. Inhale, come up to Cobra Pose. Exhale and melt back down. Okay. Back up onto all fours, maybe a little swishing of the spine, maybe a deep flexion child's pose. Go where your body wants to go. And then eventually find your way back to dog pose. Curl your toes under and stretch your spine. Maybe you want your feet wide. Maybe you want your arms wide. Maybe you don't. Okay, so discover what gives you best breath. What's giving you freedom? Can you feel your yielding? And let's bring our left foot forward to a lunge. Come on up. Crescent lunge when you're ready. Arms go wherever you want them to be. And then eventually, let's stretch through that side a little bit here. And find your way into a twist, whether the elbows coming to the outer knee and palms come together, whether your back knee comes down onto the floor, whether your hand is on the ground or on the block. So choose the variation of a twist that is working for your breath, that is working for your body. Deepen things into your lungs. What can you feel? Can you feel that diaphragm move? Can you feel the rib cage? And then unwind the twist. Find your legs and turn and open up to the side. So our left foot is now facing out. Right toes can turn in, whatever feels good. They can also be straight. Let's open up this hip. So bring your arms out to the sides. Take a breath. Go ahead and exhale. Bend your knee. Inhale, arms up. Legs straightens. Exhale and come into your bent knee. Palms together, straighten your leg. Exhale and bend. One more time, testing those waters. Straighten your leg for a moment. And as you come into Virabhadrasana, decide, how is your knee today? Do you need to have a little bit less flexion? Do you need to have a little bit more flexion? Can you feel the grounding of your foot? Are you able to stabilize your femur bone and let your pelvis move around your femur bone to its comfortable spot? If you turn your pelvis a whole lot, make sure your arms follow the pelvis. Your pose can end up looking like this instead of this, where your pelvis is turned and then you're rotating back. Try to keep the spine neutral. Root into the feet. Enjoy the work of the legs. Ground yourself. Soften your shoulders. And then go ahead and straighten that leg. Find triangle pose when you're ready. So of course you can use support of blocks. Of course you can put your little hand on your leg. However you best support yourself in this pose. When you press your back heel into the ground, does this help you lengthen the spine or rotate open? And when you do that, try not to compress into the sacroiliac joint in the back on the right side. See what it feels like to open that joint up just a little bit. Maybe your pelvis needs to turn toward your front foot a little bit more. Maybe your back foot needs to move forward, toward the long edge of the mat a little bit more. Make any adjustments that you need. Go ahead and come back up. Bend your knee. Okay. We're going to come directly into Parsvakonasana. I know we did on the other side the middle ground beforehand. So if you need a break, you can always take that break. Otherwise, bring your elbow directly onto your knee and stretch your arm overhead. Ground yourself. So feel the work. Let your legs enjoy the work. Root into the earth. Find that sense of yield where you give to the earth and the earth gives back to you. Find the breath. Soften both shoulders. Feel that spin, that work in the outer hips, the spin of the foot. Toes go left, heel goes right. All right, let's come back up. Come back to the front of your mat for one more round through vinyasa. So 2 feet back, dog pose. Now we've done those poses evenly on both sides. So feel into that symmetry. Let's take our feet wide on the mat and turn your toes in so that you have a sense of your sit bones widening, your sacroiliac joints widening. Find your breath. Relax your neck. Bring your feet back to a centered place. Come forward into a plank. Hold yourself steady. All right, and then find your way to the floor. Lift up into any variation of a back bend that works for your body, and then melt back down.
Pick up your feet and windshield wiper just a little bit left and right. And we're going to come into that pretty deep hip flexion here. So bring, scoot yourself over to the left side of your mat and bring your right knee up high toward your armpit. Okay. You can be in Sphinx-ish pose. You can be flatter onto the ground, whatever is available for your body. Feel deep compression, so let your weight lean into that hip. We're going to turn this into a twist. So stretch your left arm out over your head and open things up. Let your body move across into a twist. Let your chest open. Deep breath in and away. And then come back around. Walk your body over to the other side of your mat and bring your left knee up high toward your armpit. Same, arms can come into Sphinx or you can be lower than this. Just go where your knee and hip allow. So this is deep flexion in both your knee and your hip. So you just allow what's available for your body. Imagine a sandbag on that outer hip. All right, and then stretch your arm up overhead and release into a twist. Let the knee leave the floor. Open the breath up. All right, come back around again. This time come into Sphinx pose. Arms can turn out, extend the spine. Exhale and melt to come back down. Wide knees, anterior tilt the pelvis, deep, deep flexion in the hips. Okay, we're going to come up onto our shins, and you might need some blocks for this. We're going to take our right shin on the ground and our left leg out in front of us. So depending on your range of motion, you might have 2 blocks stacked up on top of each other, or perhaps you have 2 blocks next to your leg, whatever feels best. Try not to hike this hip up and out. Drop this hip down and in. Lift up through your spine. Find your breath. I'm going to stack 2 blocks. And then we're going to come into a twist here. Drop the shoulders, drop the hip, pull it back. Feel that good IT band stretch. Spread out through your foot on the ground. See if you can spread the toes. Relax the shoulders. And then come back around. Again, come into a lunge and lunge deeply. Deep flexion in that hip. And then switch sides. Come onto your shins. Bring your other foot forward. Maybe 2 blocks are on the ground. Maybe you stack one on top of the other. Hip drops down and in, chest rises. Feel the space. If you tend to turn your foot out, see if you can point the toes straight up. When you're ready, we're going to find our way into a twist here. Drop the hip down, extend open through your spine, and reach the arm in the air. Deep breaths. What's available? Keep moving that hip down. Try not to let the foot turn out. Press your shin. And then release. And bend into a deep flexion in that hip. Open up the back leg. Okay, let's come out of there and find pigeon pose. So the right leg is going to come forward. You can use support. I always use support. So that might mean blankets or blocks to support underneath your hip. Find your breathing. Extend the spine. So here's this rotation in the hip again, but we're going into, we're now stretching the hip instead of using it as an efforting, we're using it as a releasing. So let your head rest on the block.
or anything else that you find, square the hips. Do what you can to internally rotate the back leg, let the outer hip descend, sit bones widen. The spine is long. It's so easy to cramp up and round the diaphragm up, to curl and make your shoulders work. See what you can do to relax your shoulders, relax your diaphragm. Come into that two-sided nostril, full breaths here, not barricading the breath at all, but enjoy. All right, come on up. Either dog pose, or you can swing the leg around, whichever way is best for you to transition to the other side. Okay, so find a sense where you can open up that leg. All right, so before you come down low, make sure your hips are supported, your knees, your ankles, you're in a good place. And then extend the spine to come forward. Notice how different your two sides are. Is this a side that's easier or harder? Your back toes can curl under or lay flat, whichever's best. Soft shoulders, easy breath, soft diaphragm. Is there any part of you that's tense or gripping that doesn't need to be? And as you're ready, let's find our way out. We're going to come into dog pose. Everybody into dog pose from here. So find your way. Move your props out of the way. And discover dog pose again. Long, long spine. Stretch your heels. Let the calves open up. Let's take our feet wide on the mat again and turn your inner thighs in. So toes turn in a bit. And then walk your feet forward, come into Uttanasana and rise all the way up. We've been down, head down for a while, so if you get a little dizzy, do your midline squeeze. Now with this pose, it's a balanced posture, so if you know you need a little help, you can find a wall or a piece of furniture to stick your backside against. We're gonna come into figure four pose, so hopefully your hips are really open and available for this posture. We're gonna start on our right leg and cross your left foot over. Come to squat down. If you need balance, you can also hold something. Extend through your spine. You might want your arms up like chair pose. You might want your arms out. You might want them back. You might want your hands together. You can put your hands on your foot and knee. Whatever you're doing, find the femur bones drawing back, the sit bones widening. Go as low as your body wants to go. Heck, you can even come all the way down and take your forearms onto your shin or your hands on the floor. And then rise back up, lift your knee. Exhale, place that foot down onto the ground. Pause. You can move around, bounce, sway, ground yourself. Enjoy your 2 feet. Just like when we blocked off our nostrils in the beginning and then you let go and we had this feeling of a rush of a good, full, spacious breath. When you come out of the balance pose, make sure to pay attention to the enjoyment of your 2 feet on the ground. We take it for granted all day long. Okay. Root into your left foot. Pick up your right knee and cross your foot over your thigh. Now, you might tend to hike your hip out, see if you can keep the hips even. Square the hips. If you need balance support, to come close to a wall. You can always stick your butt against a wall too. Find your way into this pose. Sit bones are wide. Anything you want with the arms. Chair pose arms, palms together, whatever feels best. Feel free to come lower as long as you're not rounding the spine to do this. Keep the spine long, bring the femur bones back, 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 and sit bones come wide. Deep breaths. Find your focus. Balance is hard. Be okay if you lose your balance. All right, and then rise back up, lift that knee, place your foot down, enjoy your 2 feet. Find Tadasana, ground yourself, soften your knees. Inhale, last pass through, rise up. Exhale, float forward, relax your head. Halfway lift, sit bones high and wide. Exhale, plank pose. Hold yourself steady. Feel that transverse abdominis engage on your exhales. Knees down if you need it. Take your legs wide. Take a deep breath in. Lift everything up. Exhale and melt back down. Last wide leg child's pose. Settle the hips back toward the heels. Come up to sit and be on the edge of a blanket if you need to be on the edge of a blanket, and let the legs come wide. So, stretching our inner thighs is awesome. It's a part of keeping our hips very mobile. Lift your spine. Your hands may stay behind you and you may be here for the whole posture. Perhaps you come forward. Perhaps you put your hands on a block or your elbows on a block and rest your head down. So explore the depth of your posture. Make sure you're not hyperextending your knees. Keep your kneecaps and your toes pointing straight up. And see if you can get the belly of your hamstrings and inner thighs to do the work of stretching instead of feeling it at the inner knees or the sit bones. Back away if you're only feeling it at the inner knees and sit bones. Feel into the belly of your muscles. This is actually more of a hamstring stretch. We think, of course, our adductors are stretching a little bit, but often the stress of this pose lands in the inner hamstrings. So make sure that you're protecting them. You can ground your heels a little bit more if you need it. All right, come back up. Bring your feet together. Pull your feet close in to begin. Baddha Konasana. Hands behind you. Open up the soles of the feet. If you're nursing any injuries in your ankles, you can always support your posture in any way you need. All right, and then pull your feet away from you. Find your breath and come forward. Elbows into knees, the spine grows, it's long. Tuck your chin towards your chest. And then sit back up. Come onto your back and do a few rounds of some rocking plow. So we're just bringing our feet, knees maybe to touch the forehead and back again. Wherever you go, you don't have to go very far. You can go all the way into Halasana, whatever feels good. Maybe none of that feels good and you'd rather just have your knees to your chest or a happy baby pose. And then let's go ahead and release. We're going to set up for Supta Baddha Konasana. however you like to do this pose. So it could be as simple as taking your two blocks, soles of the feet together, two blocks underneath the outer hips, lying down on your back. That's probably the simplest variation. But of course, if you want to prop yourself up on a ramp behind your back, any support underneath your outer hips or spine that you need. I don't recommend doing this pose with nothing, even though it may feel like, oh, that's a good stretch. Ultimately, it's straining to your SI joints if you stay there a while. So, perhaps you're better with a little support. You can take your blocks on a ramp with a blanket behind you if you want. You can open up another blanket so it's long and make a snake out of it. You can use your snake to support your outer hips, where you have the snake over your feet and then tuck the blanket underneath the outer hips. So that way you're on a little bit of a ramp and supported. So just discover with whatever props you have, whatever support you can find. Once you get comfortable, melt into your breath. Relax as best as you can. Let your body feel the support under your head, under your shoulders. Feel the spine rest on whatever surface it's on. Melt into the belly and soften the breath to be received by the belly. Any tension that you find, breathe your way into ease. About now, if you're not using any support, your legs may start to feel achy. So allow yourself the support. Okay, whenever you are ready, and when are you ever ready to come out of Supta Baddha Konasana? But as you're ready, and if you're really comfortable, you can stay here for Shavasana. If this is your preferred way of resting, then hang out here and don't move. But if you want to do Shavasana, you can set up your props to be underneath your knees. However, you need support. There's no right or wrong way to do Shavasana. If there's any pose you need in transition out of Supta Baddha Konasana into Shavasana, then go ahead and do that. Twist or happy baby pose, maybe just knees into the chest and rock a bit. And as you find your way into that deep rest, be present for it. It's so easy to let your mind start wandering when your body gets still. So let's focus in on the breath again. Focus in on the way your body feels at rest. Melt yourself as best as you can. Let's begin to deepen the breath again. Feel yourself at rest before you move. And when you are ready to invite movement in, see what you can do to start small. Maybe turn your head from side to side or move your fingers, your toes. Eventually finding your way, coming onto your side. Come up to sit as you're ready. Hands together at the heart. Let's take a moment to offer our practice. Share your energy with another. Namaste. Thank you, everyone. Hope you have a blessed day.